This is Gigi Sabat, and you're listening to the Walk With Me podcast. My guest today is Dena. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. It's such an honor to have you here today. Now, why don't you start off by telling us more about you and where are you from?
Born and raised right here in Phoenix, Arizona, third generation Phoenician. Spent a little time in New York City, about 9 years, but the rest of my life I've been here in sunny Phoenix.
I love it. Tell us
Yeah.
more about your experience as a business owner and running a successful business as a Christian.
Oh boy. Well, I've been an entrepreneur for 27 years. My first business was in New York. It was a marketing and PR agency in the entertainment world. So I worked with a lot of Broadway, TV, film kind of clients. And then sold that company and started this coaching and training company 22 years ago. And then my second business is a nonprofit called the Girls Rule Foundation. And we are a 501c3 that does empowerment and leadership programs for teen girls. So I run that nonprofit and then my coaching and training company. And soon to be launching a series of women's Bible studies called Happy Hour with Jesus that I was called to about a year and a half ago. So that's exciting project that's coming.
Absolutely amazing. Now,
Yeah.
tell us why sales and marketing feel so exhausting.
Mm. I think for most people, sales and marketing is a learned skill. We don't walk around just knowing how to market ourselves and sell and find our audiences. I think it's one of those skill sets where you're a business owner, you might be running a boutique or you're a dentist or you're a coach, whatever you're selling, products or services. You're good at that thing. But for that thing to sell in the world, you have to understand marketing and sales. So it's a changing lifestyle of, I mean, not lifestyle, landscape. It's a changing landscape. Marketing is always evolving, right? What's just happening in social media? What's happening in the advertising world? So one, it's big to understand. So it's very overwhelming, but also it's changing. So you could master something on social media and then all of a sudden, like that's out of style and you have to do it a whole different way. Some people, we were just in a conversation about hopping social medias. Some people are like on LinkedIn for a couple years and then now they're hopping over to Instagram. So there's so many ways to market your business. You have to find the way to reach your target market. So it takes some research, it takes some experimenting, what works, what doesn't. And meanwhile, you're spending all this time and money. So it's just one of those things that I think exhaust a lot of entrepreneurs because they get frustrated and they get lost and tangled in the process. And it's really expensive to hire experts to do it for you, right? So it's just one of those things that if you're a small business owner, you have to figure out, you've got to get the skill sets, take classes. I can't tell you how many classes I took in the beginning of my entrepreneurship journey. But you have to believe in yourself and believe that your product and service solves problems, you're passionate about it. And the bridge between you and your customers is that marketing and sales bridge. And it's a learned skill. So go and learn it. Go and learn it and you'll soon master it and be selling all your things and solving problems out in the world.
I love it. Now, Dina, tell us how to turn the tables and create a truly great client experience.
Oh gosh. So client experience is how people interact with your brand. So, from the very first part, like when they go to your website or they found your blog or they heard you on a podcast, right? So, from that moment all the way through your sales process, then onboarding process, then you sold them whatever your product and service is and you served them and then they left, right? Like they completed with you. That whole experience, some people's experience is very short. I have one client, their client experience is 2 years from end to end. That's a long time, right? And so it's important to understand customer service and your customer journey. So there's 5 phases of that we all have to be aware of the brand experience and how they hear about you, how they then engage with you, so that like consultation or that process, how they onboard with you, how you serve them with that, like the deliverable of your product and service, and then how you complete them. And each one of those are should have its own experience and you should be serving them. But I think a lot of people only focus on one, which is once they buy my product or service, do that well, and that's the only thing that they have to do well. Well, you're short-sighted. You wanna have a great experience from end to end. And that takes a little consciousness, right? It takes awareness, but it's also part of your what I call a brand experience is I want to challenge everybody to think about what is the word that you want your clientele or your customers to feel. So, do you want them to feel empowered? Do you want them to feel inspired? Do you want them to feel taken care of? Do you want them to feel fun? Like what's your word that you want your clients to feel? And then how do we make that word alive through their whole experience? If you just do that, like really take pen and paper, set an alarm for 15 minutes, choose the word, like, this is what I want people to feel. For me and my brand, I want people to feel empowered. That's my word. So whether I'm on a podcast or speaking or they're reading my book or whatever their experience is for my brand, I want people to feel more empowered from when they've consumed my stuff than when they came in. So that's my word. So I would take that word and say, okay, through their whole brand experience, how do I help them make them feel empowered when they're reading my stuff, engaging through my sales process, through my onboarding process, through my delivering process, and through my completion process? How do I make them feel empowered? So it's a really good um, exercise so that you can be more intentional about the experience that people go through. Because this is why, right? You want to know the juicy why is one, you've succeeded at that at a deeper level. But this is the thing, they're going to end up raving fans of yours because they had such a great experience. Think about the brands that you had a great experience in, right? It's because they designed that experience, right? So like Disney does it really well, the Ritz hotels do it really well, but even Starbucks does this really well. So you want to think about that experience, get really great at your brand experience for your customer journey. And I promise you, you're going to have more raving fans that are like, they love you and they love your experience because you curated it. Does that make sense?
I love it, Dena. And
Very short.
I actually want to do the exercise with you. So you select one word in regards to how you want your clients to feel. And so I want my clients to feel happiness and whole.
So good. So the first interaction they have with your brand is that is your podcast? Is it a blog? Is it you speaking? Is it a book? Like what's usually people's first interaction of your brand?
It's in regards to their goals. I want to assist others with achieving their goals. And my job is not done until they do just that, achieve each and every one of those goals.
And they're happy, right?
Correct.
So when someone doesn't know you at all, like they don't know your name, they don't know your brand, what's the first thing that do they see? Like what's their first brand interaction with you? Is it this podcast? Is it a blog? Or do you speak on stages? Where are they first going to be like, her first time? What is that?
Great question. And I love this. I love how we're doing this exercise. And so essentially, oftentimes folks come through us through the traditional route via referrals. So essentially that's the route. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So they probably got referred. Someone says, oh, she's great. Go check her out. So they probably go to your website, right? So a website is usually a lot of people's first brand touch. So my challenge would be, how is your website going to create that help them feel happy, help them feel your brand. If you're all about happiness and goals, they're so excited about their goals and they're happy. How is your website, that first interaction, giving them that feeling? How is this podcast giving them that feeling, right? So we have to look at that first touch, and it's usually a website, it's usually a book, a podcast, speaking, something like that. So is it giving them that feeling, right? And then the second is probably now they're like, "Ooh, I really like her. I feel so happy. I feel like she could really help me with my goals." They're going to now get a consultation with you, right? And go through that. So is your consultation again inside of this brand experience helping them even if they don't buy from you? Did you give them a happy experience and something around their goals, right? So if you're all about goals and happiness, how is your sales process even around that, right? And then let's say they bought from you. So after sales, this is such an important piece. Oh my gosh. After we sell and someone says, "Yes, I want to work with you," you have to have an onboarding process. And in that onboarding process, we've got to have our word. I want my onboarding process to feel empowering. Empowering is like that feeling of like, I can do this. I can do this, right? Your feeling is that happy, like they're so happy because they're going to get these goals met. Your process is joyful. So we need to make sure that we design your onboarding process with those little touches, just little touches of happiness. And then, of course, your delivery, you have to kill it in the delivery, delivering that happiness, those goals, elevating them. They are so excited because they have all these goals and you helping them get to a new version of themselves and their goals. So you're going to kill it there. That's where most people do kill it, is it in the delivery. And then when they're done, whether it's a 1-day program, 3-week program, 6-month program, there's a completion in somewhere in there. And when people complete with us, what is that completion process? So that it's good, it's smooth, and again, it reminds them of this happy journey that they've had with you, right? So I just call it that completion or offboarding process. A lot of people don't even have an offboarding. They're like, "Oh, you're done. Okay, bye. Last session or last event or last thing." We want to offboard people, and usually that means some kind of completion conversation, or it's maybe a survey. It's something where we complete the scope of the work with them. So that's a little bit of the process.
Love
It's a
it.
lot deeper, but it gives you a little bit of framework of we're talking about customer journey. We're talking about brand experience end to end, and really creating raving fans at the end of the day.
Absolutely amazing. Now, let's talk about faith. Why does your faith mean so much to you?
My faith really means a lot to me because I have had a rough road and I hold on to God and not my pain. And it is through some really hard situations from childhood to now that one constant thing that has always been there for me is God. Through walking on fire, sometimes it just feels like you're just in the heat of storms, but storms without God will break you. Storms with God will build you. And I've just learned from a very young age, one of the biggest things I need to do is hold on to God and not my pain. But I think most people hold on to the pain, and that just gets us more pain, more victim, more sorrow, more down in it instead of healing, instead of rebuilding. When my mother died, I thought I c- I was in a million pieces. I've never shattered. We break, when we get betrayals or hard things, it feels like we're a little broken, a little shattered, but those moments where you're just shattered in a million pieces thinking, "I'll never come back from this." And I remember having a conversation with God and just saying, "There's just no way. There's no way I'm coming back from this. I'm in such little shattered pieces." And, he was like, "Yeah, watch me. Watch me."
Wow.
And, it didn't take overnight. That was a long process. It was over a year and a half of rebuilding and getting my strength back and getting my mindset back. And coming back from grief is a hard thing for everybody. But those are the times where we have to pull God. It's so easy to push God away and be so angry. But if you hold on to certain passages and scriptures of the Bible that comfort you and bring healing during those times, oh man, you just rebuild. And the little broken part of my heart is still broken. I'm not saying that I'm still heartbroken from the losses that I have, but God gets me through every storm. That's why. I can't do it without him.
I love it. Now, you mentioned the pain that you endured as a child. Let's circle back to your childhood. What message do you have for the little girl who experienced the pain that you're talking about with us today? What message do you have for her?
I would say that, everybody I've ever met has something hard from their childhood. It's like shades of dysfunction, right? We have some kind of shade of dysfunction, some kind of heartbreak or sorrow or abuse or hard thing. But what I know is we are stronger than we know. And I think, especially as girls, we tend to quit on ourselves. We just live in stories of I can't do it, I'm too weak, and just the disempowerment and the fear and the doubt can be very alive in little girls. And I would say, for me, I left my faith journey is I went to a Catholic school until 8th grade. And I after that, I was pretty mad at God. I did not have a very good faith journey in those years, 1st through 8th grade. And I left. I just left God and I was like, I can't do that. Can't do this anymore. And I'll tell you, it was at the age of 14, a girlfriend of mine in my new high school, she said, "Aren't you the Catholic girl?" I was the only girl from the Catholic school, right? It's so ironic I was named like the Catholic girl, and it's like, "Oh, if you knew." Like, I so was like, "No, I'm pretty mad at God." Like, I left my faith, when I graduated, and she said to me something so, for me at the moment, it was life-changing. She said, you don't have to be Catholic to be Christian. Like if you believe in the Bible and you believe in God, you can have your own relationship with him and not have a religion, a denomination. And I was like, "What?" I never heard that before. I thought this is what faith has to look like. And it didn't work for me. And so I just left the whole thing. And I didn't know I could say, "You know what? The religion, denomination of Catholic doesn't work for me, but I'm just gonna have my own relationship with God." I didn't know that at that time. So it was really, really life-changing for me to have that friend that said that. It takes courage to say that even as adults, to say that to a coworker or a friend of saying, "You can have a relationship with God and you don't have to necessarily go to church or be a certain denomination." And that's a very powerful statement for most people. They don't know that. So that was mine at 14. It changed my life. I started going to Young Life, which is, I don't know if it's nationwide, but it's a very powerful youth group that is just faith-based. It's not in any denomination. And I started to really learn about the Bible and about who I am as my identity as a child of God, and just really learned about my faith, and it went from there and grew from there. And that is what really impacted me, is just my relationship. Focused on my relationship with Jesus and my own prayer my own relationship with God and didn't really seek out a denomination. And then about 26, 27 is when I started re-going to church again to non-denomination Christian churches.
Wow, truly inspiring. And speaking of childhood, and so I asked the question. So essentially, I was sexually assaulted as a
Mm,
child, and again as an adult. And so my next question
mm,
to you is, what message do you have for someone who has been sexually assaulted as a child, or knows someone who has faced a similar challenge, or just a challenge in general?
mm. I go back to hold on to God, not your pain. And what that looks like is knowing that you are forgiven, knowing that you are loved, knowing that you are chosen. And what happened to us in our past is not who we are as identity. And even when we are a victim of something horrible, we don't have to wear that as an identity. For me, my identity as a child of God comes first. And then all my other, I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a business owner. But when other identities trump that identity, that's where I think we can really get, confused and just really we can lose our focus and our power because that identity of that hard thing. For me, I was at the towers at 9/11, and that was a big moment of my life. Like that was a very hard thing. I had massive PTSD from that. It was so horrible and life-changing. And it started I tell this story because that being a victim of that and being there started that identity of being kind of a 9/11 survivor. That identity started to trump my identity of being a child of God, and I could see that happening, and I really realized at that moment, that's where this lesson came from, is, I'm not wearing this as yes, that happened to me, but I'm not wearing it as an identity. It is something that happened to me. It was very challenging, very hard, but I will not that boundary of I will not have this be an identity of mine. It is a story that happened in my life. It was a challenge and it was a huge pivot moment in my life, but it is not going to become my identity. So I would say that is know that you are a loved, chosen, beautiful child of God, and that anything in your past or in your future that can be hard that has happened to you doesn't have to become an identity. Because when things become an identity, it can be very disempowering. I'm a victim of this or this and this and this. And what I know is God has so many plans. I one of the things I'm passionate about is people really knowing that God has so many gifts. You were born with so many gifts and so much greatness. And sometimes the challenges and the fires and the victims of life get in the way of that. And we can't get our gifts and our greatness out in the world because we have all this stuff, all this heavy stuff in the way. So, my biggest prayer, my biggest message is to everyone that has had something hard, really hard. Um, don't let it become you. You are so much more. You are so born with gifts and greatness. Don't let that thing be the block that blocks you from getting your gifts and greatness and purpose out in the world.
I love it, Dina. And it's such a powerful message. And what you're essentially saying is so that folks don't have to experience and stay in depression or live with anxiety from literally consuming what they've experienced, the challenges that they've experienced, and letting it define who they are. Very powerful message, Dina. Now, what is your best advice to the audience for walking with purpose and living a life of happiness?
So purpose is one of those things, right, that I think is thrown around and we talk about whether it's in a spiritual sense or just what is my purpose why am I here? What is my purpose? I think especially as you get older, as soon as I hit my 50s, all of a sudden there's this midlife thing that says, why am I on this planet? And I think a lot of people inquire about that. But why I am so passionate about purpose because I think most people think that it's external. Same with their gifts, that they have to go find it, that they weren't born with it. And what I know as being a coach for the last 22 years, I have coached thousands and thousands of people, is the biggest impact we can have on the world is the God-given gifts that we were given. One of my God-given gifts that I've identified is community building. I even 15 years ago, I wouldn't have put that under my gifts category. I kind of knew could do that. I didn't know it was a gift. And today I have created movements, groups in what I'm talking over 1 million people collectively. If you look at all 6 of my movements and groups and gathering, and it's like this is a God-given gift that I've had my whole life that I make good income and impact with. And it is a gift, right? So, and I feel like it's one of those gifts that really helped me um, fulfill my purpose in life, which is helping people find their purpose. So I challenge people to believe that the gifts and the greatness are already in them. And sometimes that's kind of hard to believe because you're so convinced that you don't. You're like, I'm the only one. I'm the only one that didn't get gifts and didn't get purpose. And I'm going to say, you're wrong. You have gifts. You have purpose. You have greatness. It's up to us to get ourself and our barriers out of the way so they can shine and go and make an impact in the world. So you got to do your own work. Someone's not going to just show up with a platter and go, "Oh, here's your purpose." You have to do your own work. And like I said, there's lots of I don't talk about mainly purpose in my book. My book is mainly about mindset because I think mindset gets in the way of our purpose and our gifts. But there is a lot of coaches and books and workshops around gifts and purpose. And I encourage everybody, it's so worth it to know your gifts and your purpose because you know what? Your whole life changes. Your whole life changes. So I want to help very much like you. I love that you help people fulfill their dreams. It's just such a beautiful purpose that you have. And when you help people find get their dreams in the world, is that so fulfilling for you because you're fulfilling your purpose,
Absolutely.
right? Yeah, it's so good. So that's what I would say.
Thank you, Dena. And I want to circle back to what you said there, and I receive your kind words. Thank you. I appreciate you. And so essentially, when we talk about me being able to serve, continuing to serve, it's truly a blessing and an honor because as you're aware, I almost lost my life a few years ago. All my life I love helping others, so to be able to continue to serve others is truly a blessing. And so again, I receive your kind words, Dena. Thank you. And thank you for being a guest on the Walk With Me podcast. Now, where can the audience find you?
Absolutely. Super easy. My website, denapatton.com, has my book. It has some really great free downloads that help you in this walk of purpose and gifts and greatness. And super easy. denapatton.com.
I love it. Thank you, Dena. And God bless you and be safe, my friend.
Thank you so much.